Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. I apologise that there has not been any content over the last couple of days. I have been suffering with a stomach bug of some form which has kept me up most of the night for the last couple of nights or so. I won't detail why it has kept me up, but I'm sure you can guess by the matter of fact that it was a stomach bug. So unfortunately, I just wasn't feeling very good and I didn't feel like I was able to sit down and do a little video or a little live stream without having to rush off to the toilet or rush off to to get a bowl of some form. So unfortunately we weren't able to do any videos, but we are back. I am on the better end of said stomach bug, and we are back with the content. Everton, of course, playing another pre-season friendly this afternoon against Stoke City at 3 o'clock. A couple of hours until that game kicks off. We will be back with an instant match reaction to that game directly after it as well, so don't forget to come and join us for that one. Hopefully we get to see Arnaud Danjuma in action. Whether he starts or not is another question, but hopefully we get to see him in some form. Hopefully we get to see Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. There's a lot of talk about Dominic Calvert-Lewin recently about whether or not he's fit, whether or not he's available. Obviously, every time, a team sheet comes out and Dominic Calvert-Lewin's name isn't mentioned on it, there's a lot of speculation and then there's therefore a lot of conversation regarding him. So hopefully we get to see him in action today as well. He's been in training. The club have been putting videos and pictures of him up training, so we know that he's been there. We know that he's training with the squad, so hopefully we get to see him in some form, even if it's just for 45 minutes, which I suspect it will be. 45 minutes today, maybe playing 60 minutes next week against Sport, and then obviously playing the 90 minutes against Fulham on the opening day of the Premier League season. But yeah, as I said, that game is at 3 p.m. today. I'm sure we will all be watching, but we are going to do a live transfer episode. We're going to talk about the latest transfer news and rumours. We haven't spoken about this for quite some time. As I said, being a couple of days now since we last done a video on this. And when we last done a transfer video, I believe we were talking about Bilal Touré potentially moving to Atalanta. We sat down and spoke about the fact that Atalanta were also in advanced negotiations with the player over a potential move. And at that point, it was up to the player to make his decision as to whether or not he would join Everton or Atalanta. And I remember sitting down and speaking about this and sort of giving a sort of opinions on both sides of the coin for Bilal Touré. Atalanta obviously being a club that have finished in Europe for I think 6 of the last 7 seasons. They've obviously got quite a good recent record of bringing through young players and improving them and giving them a good platform to impress, and then obviously selling them on to sort of bigger clubs, if you like, for a higher fee. Rasmus Højlund about to join Manchester United is a fine example of that. But we also talked about, Everton playing in the Premier League and having that pull of being able to come and play in the Premier League. And if you do well in the Premier League, then all of a sudden you are catapulted onto the world stage. And it was, we were sort of at the point where it was down to the player. I always felt personally that he would choose Atalanta because, as I said, there was a lot of journalists from sort of Atalanta's side of things who were really quite convinced that he was going to join there, and whereas the journalists from Everton's side were more so just saying that a decision hasn't been made yet. We have had news over the last 24 hours that Bilal Touré is in Italy at the moment. His decision has been made. He is joining Atalanta. I believe he's had his medical over the last 24 hours or so, agreed this deal, blah, 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 blah. We don't need to talk about it now because he's not joining Everton Football Club, and therefore we don't need to worry about it. For me, much of, as I said the other day, really disappointing because of the fact that Everton have obviously spent so much time on this transfer and Everton have obviously put so much resource and so much energy into this player, into trying to bring this player into the football club, and it's always quite deflating when you spend that time and when you spend those resources doing that, and then ultimately somebody else comes in and takes the player off you, regardless of how good the player is or how much we know about the player. If you're in a position where you are in advanced negotiations with a player and you look set to sign him and then another football club comes in, it's that thing, isn't it, where Everton could be linked with a player tomorrow and we're in advanced negotiations to sign him, and we all sort of are sitting there going, not really big on him, not really interested in him, I don't really want him, and then another team comes in and is in advanced negotiations as well. All of a sudden we're like, well actually, he'd be a good signing for us, bring him in. It's sort of that sort of thing. It's never nice to be beaten in any sense in football, whether it be on the pitch or whether it be off the pitch. And effectively, it is deflating and it is disappointing to have been beaten to this signing. But it is what it is. And we ultimately now have to move on, and we have to move to the next target, and we have to prioritise going and bringing in the next target. And is that target Boulaye Dia? Now, according to Corriere dello Sport, who are an Italian publication, they have stated that Everton have bid €18 million plus Neal Maupay for Salernitana striker Boulaye Dia. There's also been a number of sources over the last 24 hours or so who have reported Everton's interest in Boulaye Dia and the potential of bringing him in as a replacement or an alternative, should I say, to Bilal Touré. Now, Boulaye Dia for me would be an absolutely fantastic signing. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I know a massive amount about him. However, his stature, his size, his playing style, his ability, on the ball, off the ball, is that of similarity to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, yes, I know some people might say, well, we don't want another Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We want somebody that's a bit different so we can play in a different way. But we tried that last summer with Neal Maupay, and instead of actually playing in a different way, we didn't. We just sort of said, actually, why don't you try and play like Dominic Calvert-Lewin to a striker that's about 4'6" and not very good in the air or not very good on the ball. So Boulaye Dia for me would be a really, really, really good signing. Ultimately, the price tag, again, is questionable. €80 million plus Neal Maupay. What would that ultimately come to in the end? I suppose with these sort of situations, it's never really a cash plus player deal. It's always what it would be more than what it more than likely would be is us signing Boulaye Dia for, let's say, for let's say €18 million, and then Neal Maupay going the other way for, let's say, I don't know, €6 or €7 million, and then ultimately that's how the deal is done. So it's not actually a sort of a cash plus player. It's more they sign Neal Maupay, we sign Boulaye Dia, and then obviously there's a difference in cash there. Having said that, €18 million plus Neal Maupay, what would that come to? Probably about €18.5 million, to be honest, at the moment, with the season that Neal Maupay has just had. But if we look at Boulaye Dia's stats last season, he played 33 games in Serie A, 16 goals and 6 assists. So obviously much, much better than anything that any Everton player recorded last season. The season before, 25 games, only 5 goals. That, of course, was in La Liga when he was playing for Villarreal. He is only 26 years old, so he's in a good stage of his career. Senegalese, of course, and he's contracted until 2026. So again, probably would take a decent amount of money to bring him in. He has had some injury issues in the last year or so as well, which maybe will form part of that negotiation process or decision making process on whether or not to bring him in. But as I've just mentioned, his stats last season was significantly better than any of our players have produced in recent years. So ultimately, he would be a good alternative, and I think it's important. I said this the other day when we were speaking about the Bilal Touré stuff. I think it's important that Everton now move away from Bilal Touré. Now, obviously, he looks set to join, Atalanta anyway, and having his medical and all that sort of stuff, so we haven't really got a choice but to step away from him. But my point is we need to shift the focus now onto somebody else, and if that somebody else is Boulaye Dia, then obviously, the Evertonians or all will get behind that, and we'll shift the focus onto that. Like I said, would he have been a better option than Bilal Touré? Well, Bilal Touré is younger, probably a little bit quicker, probably a little bit more versatile. However, obviously not as experienced and more of a risk than what Boulaye Dia would be, even though Boulaye Dia hasn't played in the Premier League, so therefore would be a risk anyway. He would, is less of a risk because of the, his stature and how he plays as a striker than what Bilal Touré would be. Would I like Everton to go out and sign him? Yes. Do I think Everton will go out and sign him? I don't know. He's been a player that we've been linked with before in this transfer window. As I said, there is other names that Everton are being linked with at the moment that I think are probably more realistic. Iheanacho being one of them, just because of the fact that A, he's played in the Premier League, B, he obviously is in the country and has played in the country, and C, it'd probably be a much easier deal to do for less money than what Boulaye Dia would be. But I would like Everton to go out and sign Boulaye Dia. I would, because he would be something different. He would be something that we'd not seen before, and ultimately I think he would be able to come in and do a job for us, and he would be able to come in and massively strengthen our forward line. And all of a sudden, if you remove Neil Maupay from the squad and replace him with Boulaye Dia, and you've then got Boulaye Dia, you've got Danjuma, you've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and then you go out and maybe sign another winger, then all of a sudden our forward options are looking much stronger and are looking much healthier. Whether or not that will happen is to be seen. Again, as I said, I don't think it would be 18 million plus Neil Maupay. I think it would be more than likely Neil Maupay signs for Salernitana, and then obviously we sign Boulaye Dia for the fee, that with the Neil Maupay fee being taken into consideration. I do believe that Salernitana are interested in Neil Maupay, which could be seen as a positive in this situation, could be seen as a negative, because ultimately it could be seen as it's an easy link, because ultimately they're interested in Neil Maupay, so it's an easy link to say, well, they've got a forward that Everton will probably want, let's link them together. Whether or not there's actually anything in it is remains to be seen. But again, I do think he'd be a good signing. I do think he'd be a good player to bring in. I do think he would improve us. I do believe he might have had some injury issues recently, but again, Everton wouldn't be targeting a player and wouldn't be looking to spend that much money on a player if if ultimately they were, you know, in a massive risk of not being able to play through injury. So yeah, again, we'll wait and see what happens with this one. I don't know an awful lot about him, I'll be honest. I don't watch the French league, so I don't know an awful lot about him. Yeah, again, let's wait and see. Did I just say the French league then? My apologies, the Italian league. But again, let's just wait and see what comes of it. If anything, like I said, I don't know an awful lot about him, but we'll wait and see. Would he be a good signing? Yes, for me. Is it going to happen? I think it's less likely than some of the other names, but that doesn't mean it won't, because, you know, I think Bilal Touré was less likely to sign than Wilfred Gnonto because of that Premier League connection, but obviously we were much more interested, or certainly much more advanced in those negotiations with Bilal Touré than we were with Wilfred Gnonto. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one, but according to Corriere dello Sport, Everton have bid €18 million plus Neil Maupay for Salernitana striker Boulaye Dia. According to Dominic Schneider, who is a journalist and German journalist, he has reported that Everton are currently in talks to sign striker Yuri Alberto. Talks are ongoing with no official offer for the Brazilian yet. Again, very similar sort of transfer rumour coming from a source that I've never heard of before and may never hear of again. Again, I don't know anything about this player, and I don't think Everton are going to sign this player. If I'm being honest with you, it's an easy link. Everton are interested in a striker. His agent has probably thrown his name out there a little bit more to get him into Europe and to get him, you know, more well known, Premier League move, etc., etc. But, you know, again, I have not got a clue what this fella could bring or how good he could be for Everton Football Club, and I don't think there's much point in researching it, because I don't think anything is going to come of it. According to Jack Talbot, who is a journalist that we do see an awful lot of, he has said that Everton have an interest in Southampton forward Che Adams and Leicester City forward Kelechi Iheanacho. Both forwards have been discussed by Everton's recruitment team. Now, this is what worries me a little bit. These are the types of deals that I can see Everton doing more than a deal for the likes of Boulaye Dia. And that is because we know, notoriously, over the last few years, it's not wrong to say this, it's right. We know, notoriously, over the last few years, Everton's recruitment team has been very Premier League centred. Sort of, have they played in the Premier League? Yes. Will they take priority to anybody that hasn't played in the Premier League? And that shouldn't be the case, because Boulaye Dia, for me, is a better striker than Che Adams is, without a shadow of a doubt. And he's a better striker than Kelechi Iheanacho, if I'm being honest with you. However, he hasn't played in the Premier League. So therefore, the way Everton have been ran previously, and it may change this year, because Kevin Thelwell might have a different way of working and Sean Dyche might have a different way of working. But recently, Everton have been very centred on, have they played in the Premier League? Yes, therefore they take priority. Now, it also has to be said that Kelechi Iheanacho, and Che Adams would probably cost less than what Boulaye Dia would cost, so that has to be taken into consideration as well, given our financial position. However, again, I just don't really. I'm not enthused by bringing Che Adams in. I'm really not. Again, another player who's had his injury issues in the past. He's a big centre forward. He can put the ball in the back of the net, but incredibly inconsistent. Somebody that's never really consistently sort of done it at Southampton and never really consistently impressed. He was good, obviously, before the move to Southampton. He got that move, and he's been all right since then. But we don't need all right. We need better than all right. We've already got enough inconsistency in this squad. We've already got enough players like Demarai Gray, for example, who turn up once every 10 games and score the winning goal, and then you don't see them for 9 games. We don't need more of that, and I fear that certainly Che Adams is very much that. Iheanacho, I think, is a little bit different. I think Iheanacho, there's a player there. He obviously has got a very, very impressive goals per minute ratio. However, he hasn't played a lot of minutes, so you have to question, why hasn't he played a lot of minutes? Is it because the managers at Leicester City, Brendan Rodgers, etc., just didn't believe he was good enough to get in that team? They preferred other strikers over him, whether it be Jamie Vardy or Patson Daka, etc., etc. Again, I would prefer out of the 3 Everton to go and get Boulaye Dia, because I think he'd be a better signing, and I think he would be better for this squad and more suited for the squad. However, he's the one that is not playing in the Premier League currently, so he's probably the one that their eyes are on the least. I have a gut feeling, I'll be honest, that Kelechi Iheanacho will be an Everton player come the end of this transfer window. I just do. And people might disagree with me, and people mightn't like that, but I just have a gut feeling that Kelechi Iheanacho will be an Everton player before the end of this transfer window. I do. And that's not me saying I don't think we'll sign Boulaye Dia or I think that this deal is completely dead in the water. I just think Kelechi Iheanacho has got Everton written all over him. And again, if we were to sign both, I'd have no problem with it. Would I have a problem with just Iheanacho coming in as our only striker? Is he an improvement on Neil Maupay? Probably, yeah. But is he enough? I'm not so sure. And it's easy, isn't it? It's easy to go and get Iheanacho. It's telegraphed. Nobody's surprised. But yeah, we will wait and see. According to Turkish newspaper Sabah, Beşiktaş are interested in Everton's Demarai Gray and have inquired. Everton value him at €10 million. That another Turkish journalist has reported that Beşiktaş have been in negotiations with Everton over a move for Demarai Gray for some time. That's coming from Gökmen Özkan, who is, as I said, another Turkish journalist. Yeah. Demarai Gray moving to Beşiktaş. I think it's become quite evident over the last couple of weeks, hasn't it, that Demarai Gray will be moving on. He has been linked with moves to Beşiktaş. He's been linked with a move to Crystal Palace over the last few days or so. He's been linked with a move to Saudi Arabia, of course, over the last couple of months. I think it's quite clear that Demarai Gray will be, or certainly Everton and Demarai Gray are looking to part ways this summer. Where he goes, I don't care. I'll be honest. I honestly don't care where he goes. I don't care if he goes to Crystal Palace. I don't care if he goes to Beşiktaş. I don't care if he goes to the Sunday League team that plays down the road, as long as Everton get a decent price for him. 15 million quid in the grand scheme of things wouldn't be a bad bit of business, considering we signed them for 1.5 million quid. Ultimately, do I think Demarai Gray, we would miss Demarai Gray? Well, we would miss Demarai Gray. And that's a matter of fact. And whether people like that or they don't like it, the fact of the matter is, as inconsistent as Demarai Gray is, and as frustrating as Demarai Gray is, and as sort of uninspiring as he can be, and as much as we sit here and say he's not good enough, we need better, he's still somebody that scored 4 Premier League goals last season, and he's still somebody that will get between 4 and 5 Premier League goals every year. Now, that isn't enough. Of course, that isn't enough, and I fully agree with that, and I'm not saying that we should keep him because that's enough, and I'm not saying we should reject 15 million, by the way, because 15 million I think would be a good deal for that. However, we have to be careful, because although that mightn't be enough, and although he might be inconsistent, and we might be sitting here saying, oh, we need better, etc., 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 if we lose Demarai Gray and don't replace those 4 Premier League goals, it sounds mad. It sounds absolutely mad, doesn't it, to sit here and say 4 Premier League goals is such a, it's such a big feat. But if you look at Everton's season last season, let's just have a look at our the Premier League table last season. Everton finished scoring 34 goals last season. 34 goals. Now, Demarai Gray got, 4 of them? 5 of them, maybe? Let me just double check. 34 goals. We stayed up scoring 34 goals. That is absolutely terrible. That's less than a goal a game. That is embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And if you look at Demarai Gray scored 4 of those goals last season and assisted 1. So he was involved in 5 goals last season, directly involved, out of 34. So as much as we might say he's inconsistent and he's not good enough, and if we get 15 million, snatch your hand off for him, we can't afford to not replace those goals, because as much as it might seem such a minute amount, 4 goals, etc., etc., that's such a small amount. 4 goals to Everton last season was massive. You think of 4 goals that stick in your head: the equaliser against Wolves, the winner against Bournemouth, the equaliser against Chelsea, and these aren't the Demarai Gray goals, by the way, I'm just naming any goal. The equaliser against Manchester City. There's 4 goals. One of them was Demarai Gray's. That was so important to Everton last season. We can't afford to lose those goals and not replace them. As much as we might want to sell Demarai Gray, and as much as we might say 15 million quid, yeah, snatch your hand off, but we need to ensure that we go out and we can bring somebody in that can replace them. And yes, Dan Juma might replace those goals. He might do. And yes, dare I say, before anybody flies at me, Dominic Calvert-Lewin might stay fit for a decent amount of the season and he might replace those goals. Yes, that might happen. Don't come at me. I'm just saying. However, we can't afford to lose those goals and not replace them. Would I, having said that, would I sell him for £15 million? Yes, I would. Because I think that would enable us to go out and bring somebody else in that could come in and could do a better job. However, we would have to do that. We couldn't just lose Demarai Gray and say, well, it doesn't really matter if we don't replace him because he was inconsistent or he wasn't good enough anyway. No, we have to ensure that we replace him. And by the way, I've said this before and I will say it again. Everton now, for me, still need 2 strikers or at least 1 centre forward and 1 more winger, I'd say. Preferably I'd want 2 centre forwards and 1 more winger. But that's as we are now. If Everton lose Neal Maupay, then we need 2 centre forwards. If Everton lose Demarai Gray, then we need 2 wingers. That isn't, well, we can lose Demarai Gray and we can lose Neal Maupay and we can just bring in 1 centre forward and 1 winger. No. Our squad depth is terrifying at the moment. Absolutely terrifying. And going into this transfer window, we needed forward players, we needed wingers, we needed strikers. So if we lose players out of that, Ellis Sims, Demarai Gray, example, Neal Maupay, then we can't just say, well, we'll just stick with what we planned for the beginning of the summer and we'll just bring in 1 striker and 1 winger. No, for every player we lose, they need replacing on top of what we already need to bring in anyway. It's as simple as that. And are Everton going to be able to do that? I don't know. However, what I would say is, as much as I think most of us would take 15 million for Demarai Gray, we would need to replace him, and we would need to replace them goals. It's as simple as that. We couldn't allow him to leave and not replace those 4 Premier League goals, because as much as we might go, it's only 4 Premier League goals, we only scored 30 odd last season. 34 goals did we score, if I just said 34 goals. Do you know what I mean? It's worrying. He scored over 10% of our goals last season. So we would need to replace that. We would. Having said that, as I said, if we can get some decent money for him, make a decent profit on him, and then go and reinvest that and bring somebody else in, then I don't think that would be the worst deal. TalkSport have reported that if Everton are to fail in signing Wilfred Gnonto from Leeds, they have Shakhtar Donetsk's Tete as an alternative. I believe Tete is on a free. Again, free transfers. If you could bring in Boulaye Dia and then go and sign Tete, and then maybe go and sign another winger, all of a sudden, Danjuma, Boulaye Dia, Tete, another winger, maybe Iheanacho comes in, then things are looking stronger, aren't we? If that happens or not, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Liverpool Echo reporting that Everton have made contact over the availability of Sheffield United striker Daniel Jefferson. I don't think there's much in that. I'll be honest. I don't think there's much in that. Again, a player that we've been linked with numerous times over the last few years or so, but never actually anything come of it. Screams for me of his agent trying to sort of push a move for him. I think he scored his first professional goal against Everton at Goodison Park, if I'm not mistaken, or certainly against Everton. So yeah, again, whether or not that happens, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. And then I suppose another big bit of news that come and went over the last few days when I was ill was the report that Dominic Calvert-Lewin had been offered to Roma. Now, this interested me really because in between violently vomiting and shitting, I was thinking to myself, well, who's offered Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Roma? Have Everton offered Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Roma? Has his agent offered Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Roma? Has Dominic Calvert-Lewin offered Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Roma? Who's offered him? And the answer to that question is, who knows? But it was quite... it was quite quick for Everton to come out. Everton come out quite quickly, and you know, sort of put these rumours to bed and said that A, they've got no interest in loaning Dominic Calvert-Lewin out with an obligation to buy, because that would make no sense, because we would lose our striker and would have no money to replace him this summer. And they also come out and pretty much sort of put a stop to any rumours that we were looking to move him on anyway. Now, again, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like any other player in this squad, has got his price. If somebody comes in and offers us a ridiculous amount of money for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, then I would expect Everton to sell him, because, you know, ultimately, why would they not? His injury issues, etc., etc., you would take the money for him. However, a loan with an obligation to buy is just outright ridiculous, and it would be beyond stupidity for Everton to even contemplate allowing Dominic Calvert-Lewin to leave on loan with an obligation to buy next season. It would just be ridiculous. So yeah, I don't think Dom's going anywhere. I don't think he'd force a move anywhere, because I don't think he's in a position to do that, and I don't think anybody would spend the money that Everton really would be willing to sell him for. So I think that one was just a bit of a mad one of them where you look at and you go, that's a bit mad, and then you never heard of it again. But yeah, anyway, we are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. It does only take a second. As I said, we'll be back at about 4:30 with the instant match reaction to the Stoke City game, so don't forget to look out for that one. But until then, big thank you all for watching. We are back. This video has been a little bit choppy. I've stumbled over my words a little bit. I apologise, but I haven't spoken really to anybody for the last 4 or 5 days because I've just been stuck in bed, so I apologise. Yeah, big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new, and we'll see you later.